Welcome to Censored. This reading is from number 93, and it's a very special uh, issue of Censored, the newsletter. It's by William J. Eisenman, and I'd like to read a little quote here at the beginning. Guess what? I'm not disabled anymore. According to Social Security, they've cut off my SSD. Naturally, I'm fighting them. Who is disabled? Is a man with no arms and no legs who gets a job as second base for the New York Yankees and makes more than the minimum wage disabled? Is a beggar in a wheelchair with residual paralyses from polio who makes more than the minimum wage disabled? Federal law under the Social Security Act says they're both not disabled. This law states that if one can work at any kind of job, then one is not disabled. The Social Security Administration, along with businesses, determine who is disabled. The determination of disability, the definition of disability, is dependent on whether one can work or not and how much work one can do. The Social Security Administration's definition of disability has absolutely nothing to do with one's physical condition. It has nothing to do with what a doctor might call permanently and totally disabled. Prior to the 1960s, Social Security never paid out disability benefits, except in the case of elderly workers. Back then, Social Security was not the authority on disability. The agency had no determinations of disability. Today, in order for one to receive Social Security disability benefits, one must have worked long enough to pay into the system a minimum number of quarters. Only workers can receive Social Security disability insurance benefits. Those who have never worked, the elderly and the disabled, are eligible to receive SSI benefits. During the 1960s, someone came up with a plan to help the disabled who wanted to work and could not find regular employers to hire them. Sheltered workshops arose that employed the handicapped in non-pressure work that allowed them to pay quarters into the Social Security system. After a time in these workshops, many people were able to pay in their minimum quarters, and when they came to realize that they were unemployable in the real world, they could apply for Social Security disability insurance. It was a good plan, a workable plan, even though some of these sheltered workshops took advantage of some of their employees. The work in these sheltered workshops was considered made-up work, non-productive, not gainful employment. So this situation never was a problem for the Social Security Administration. These were not real jobs. Thus, these people were considered disabled. At this time, it was common knowledge among those working in the social services fields dealing with the disabled that many of them, maybe even the vast majority, were never going to make it in the real work world. Despite type A drive mechanisms in many of the disabled, they weren't going to find jobs. The platitudes like, "There's nothing you can't do," "Never say can't," "The world doesn't owe you a living," weren't going to trump the reality of disability. Today, some disabled people are their own worst enemies. Greg Perry is a handicapped man who believes the Americans with Disabilities Act is disabling. Mr. Perry has never come to terms with his handicap, nor his limitations. He believes those on the government dole are losers. He thinks all teenagers are typically lazy and that they believe the world owes them. He believes the ADA would have held back his success in life. He's a writer. Mr. Perry is against all changes that would help the handicapped that are required by the Americans with Disabilities Act. He believes that the ADA is coercion, and coercion destroys compassion. In the Bible, 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 3, it is prophesied that in the end time humans will be without natural affection, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. Keep this in mind and remember that nearly every social program since the time of Ronald Reagan has been infiltrated by stealth, by conservatives who want to destroy that part of the government that provides for the general welfare of we, the people. Again, Mr. Perry believes that the ADA is coercion and coercion destroys compassion. He claims that welfare teaches family and friends not to help each other, and that the ADA teaches Americans not to have compassion. It has brought about discrimination against the handicapped. He believes the word disabled can be used too loosely. Someone else who believes the word disabled is used too loosely is George W. Bush's nominee to the United States Supreme Court, John G. Roberts. This conservative maggot believes that if you can brush your teeth, you're not disabled. The Black Lung Office within the United States Labor Department believes that if one can go to school or drive a car, then one is not disabled. In a case where Roberts represented Toyota, he claimed that if the plaintiff could brush her teeth, wash, bathe, and do laundry, cook breakfast, and take care of her personal chores around the house, she was not truly disabled. According to Greg Perry, businesses are being robbed when they are made to make changes under the ADA. He wants government to get out of his way and leave him alone. If I wanted to harm the handicapped, first thing I'd do is campaign to strengthen the ADA, he adds. He said, and then added, when law is compassionate, that means it will cost you money and harm the very people it's supposed to be helping. Unquote. Mr. Perry sounds downright politically conservative in his thinking and seems to have never come to terms with his handicap, his true limitations. A handicapped caller once called into the newsletter-censored internet radio show and said he was a conservative and that he was a Christian and he was receiving SSI benefits from Social Security. He began bitching about those on the government dole and about how liberals were to blame. He then ranted about the unworthy poor. He was quickly reminded that he was on the dole, and that if it hadn't been for liberals, he'd be on the street or in a nursing home with no income. Some years ago, Social Security tried to tie the hands of administrative law judges when they prepared an illegal policy to stop the reversals of their denied disability claims. The agency wanted to train administrative law judges to follow policy instead of federal law. It was an outrageous attempt by conservative policymakers to push the agency in the direction of getting their 62.5 case reversal percentage down to zero. Under conservative pressure, President Bill Clinton changed welfare as we knew it. And now the needy had to find non existent jobs instead of being on the dole. Welfare money that could have supported small business was withdrawn from the economy. The Black Lung Office in the United States Labor Department also plays dirty tricks in denying benefits. Its workers lie, misuse, and misinterpret information. They don't care how their obscene actions physically or financially hurt their claimants. The wicked conservative spirit that seeks to shrink the size of government on the backs of the poor, needy, and deserving is rife throughout the United States Labor Department. The driving force behind it all is a faith-based religiosity that divides the poor into the worthy and the unworthy. In the last 25 years, this infestation of government by these misguided Christian soldiers has grown worse. They are everywhere. Then Secretary of Labor Elaine L. Chao is conservative. Then Solicitor of Labor Howard M. Radley was conservative. And Eugene Scalia, the son of the United States Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, is conservative. These people were all working at the United States Labor Department. These people are not old-time conservatives who want to balance budgets and cut government waste. These people have the zeal of the prohibitionists of the early 20th century, which ended up spawning organized crime. These conservatives promote an unbiblical agenda that preaches a dog-eat-dog world. At that time, there were 55 million disabled people in America, and 75% of them wanted to work. But if they worked at substantial and gainful employment, they would lose their benefits because they would no longer be considered disabled under the law. This is an outrageous catch-22 for most disabled people who need to pay for personal attendant care. They would need to make a corporate CEO's salary to manage. It's very expensive to be disabled. Substantial and gainful employment today, or at this time, was defined by the Social Security Administration as making $810 a month. This is not even enough to rent an apartment. The job of the Social Security Administration is supposedly twofold: to keep the disabled poor and to get the disabled off SSDI. A 20-year-old worker has a 3-in-1 chance of becoming disabled before reaching retirement age. The Social Security Administration defines disability as a condition that keeps one from working, and the condition is expected to last at least 1 year, or could result in death. The Internal Revenue Service puts it this way: a person is permanently and totally disabled if, number one, the person can't engage in any substantial, gainful activity because of a physical or mental condition, and number two, a physician determines that the condition has lasted or can be expected to last continuously for at least a year or can lead to death. Both of these definitions rely on federal law. But that law is flawed. This law presumes and the law is Kidda, by the way, this law presumes one has worked and then becomes disabled, and this law is abused, twisted, and wrested. And when it is called upon to deal with disabilities that occur without work experience or before work experience, that is, disabilities that began in childhood, other benefit programs rely on this law, and confusion reigns. In some cases, the disability must have begun before age 22, and what occurred after that, disregarding a miraculous healing, should not matter. The problem is the present law, Kidda, has difficulty defining a disability that occurred before a work experience. The law is biased and ruthlessly flawed. A case went before an administrative law judge that involves a person who contracted a severe case of polio in 1948 at age 4. He was left with much paralysis from the neck down. At age 23 or 24, this person was given a made-up job, and in 1974 he applied for Social Security disability benefits. He was deemed permanently and totally disabled. Today, this person is entitled to sole survivor benefits on his father's black lung claim. But black lung wants him to prove his disability actually occurred before age 22. The black lung is relying on Social Security's date of disability as the true date of disability. Black lung claims the man recovered enough from polio in childhood to go to work after age 22. Ample evidence proves this man's disability occurred before age 22, but the law reads, if you work, you're not disabled. Those on Social Security disability should beware of programs like PASS and Ticket to Work. These are programs that the Social Security Administration uses to try to throw people off disability. The law governing disability is flawed. It's inadequate and biased. It can't determine a continuous, non-changing disability that begins in childhood. The ability to participate in accommodated, made-up work should not be part of the law. There is only one way to determine disability. A doctor must do it. It's not the job of judges or social workers to determine whether one is disabled. Even the law can't determine what is disability. Congress needs to change this law. Who knows how much pain and suffering the law as now drafted has caused? One can only imagine. It is clear also that this law stinks with the pollution of conservative politics. It reeks with the blood of tortured, physically and financially disabled victims. This is cruel and unusual punishment meted out to the weakest and most helpless among us. Most of these programs depend on the fact that many people who are denied benefits won't pursue their cases. In this way, the program saves money, and the conservative hack posing as a social worker can be satisfied in his belief that he has stuck to his principles. Government money should only go to the Pentagon and big corporations, as well as tax cuts for the rich. Most of these hack conservative social workers are faith-based counterfeit Christians. They are out to create conditions in America where the poor, needy, and disabled are forced to beg in the streets, become a burden on family and friends, or end up in nursing homes. They want to steal any hard-fought independence that has been acquired by the disabled. These people believe in prisons, nursing homes, and mental institutions where the disabled can be warehoused. These counterfeit Christians grind the faces of the poor, as mentioned in Isaiah 3:15. Prophecies of the end time in the Bible in 2 Timothy 3 and 1 through 5 state that in the last days men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those who are good, traitors, heady, high minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. In order to live out their wrong headed convictions and principles, these high minded conservative hypocrites must turn away their ears from the truth and be turned to fables. 2 Timothy 4:4. The situation is out of control. Our country has been infiltrated by godless, faith-based hypocrites who have sold us out. They have given our lives over to heartless corporations that will steal our pensions, outsource our jobs, and grab our tax money at every turn. They have reneged on their promise to provide health insurance, and now they help determine what is a disability. These people must be exposed and punished. Without punishment, there is only continued abuse. One need only look at all the crooks and traitors who escaped punishment and who now hold good jobs in what was the George W. Bush administration. Only a doctor can make a determination of what is a disability. Excuse me, a person with a severe heart condition, though he may work, is still disabled. To deny this obvious fact is to admit of a hidden agenda, an agenda that can't be called social work. Conservative faith-based hypocrites who seek the destruction of government programs that help the poor, the needy, and the disabled suffer from a character pathology. It's not just a matter of politics, it's a sickness. It's a matter of convictions and principles that are nothing more than delusions. For our own safety and health, these people must be exposed and rooted out. They must be punished and shunned. We're not dealing with two different political philosophies, liberal and conservative. Was the Inquisition a mere political philosophy? Hell no! It was about power, which was faith-based, and it was about death and destruction. This danger is real, and the law determining disability, KIDA, as to whether one can work or not is part of this danger. It must be repealed, changed, or forced to not view disability as an artificial construct, but as a reality. The reality is that only a doctor can make the determination of disability, in law or out of law. 70% of those receiving Social Security disability benefits want to work, but less than 0.2% ever take a job. Social conservatives believe the disabled are too lazy to work. The reality is that Social Security, in wanting to keep the disabled poor, has built-in barriers to working. And if one gets a job, Social Security chomps at the bit to get that worker out of the program. A person's work history can work against him, portraying him as not disabled when he needs to apply for benefits. Confusion reigns supreme in these programs and the law, and all this confusion is deliberate. It creates jobs, not for the disabled, but for social workers, lawyers, and administrative law judges. In 1954, President Dwight D. Eisenhower said, quote, "Should any political party attempt to abolish Social Security, unemployment insurance, and eliminate labor laws and farm programs, you would not hear of that party again in our political history. There is a tiny splinter group, of course, that believes you can do these things. Among them are a few Texas oil millionaires and an occasional politician or businessman from other areas. Their number is negligible and they are stupid." Unquote. Their number may still be negligible and they may still be stupid, but they've infiltrated and infested the government at all levels, and they are making policy. And the policy that they make hurts you and me. The end.
Hi, this is William Morrow. Are you one of those people who join a health club, and after they have your big, overpriced annual membership, you notice that you're on your own with little or no results even after all the promises? Then the website Personal Trainer is for you. Thank you very much, William H. Morrow III.
So you lost another argument with a conservative, right-wing Republican. He talked over you. He screamed and yelled. He brought out the Bible. He thumped it. He quoted scripture to you. You were lost because you came at him with facts. Nothing but facts. And you expected that would make you look good. That would make you win the argument, but it didn't. You know why you lost the argument? You know why you're going to lose your next argument? Because you don't read Censored. Censored, the 30-year-old newsletter that shows you how to defeat a conservative. Read Censored, and you'll have all the ammunition you need. Every time you get into an argument with a right-wing conservative, so-called Christian. Censored, that's all you need. Read it, and defeat a conservative.
Greetings, listeners. Let me speak to you for a moment about the foundation of our entire organization, Newsletters Censored. It was founded by our mentor, the Reverend Dr. William J. Eisenman, in 1977. It discusses the 5 taboos of American life: politics, religion, health, human sexuality, and child rearing. You won't find anything like this in the mainstream media and the press. It reveals the kind of truth that most people are afraid to hear. Can you handle it? We are living in the end times, so in order to defeat a conservative and save America, you need Newsletters Censored. Go to www.newslettercensored.com, click on the printable order form page, and with your gift to support this work, get your free annual subscription. This is James P. Madonna of Megalife 21, the hardest hitting internet talk radio station on the planet.